Well, fellas, we heard the release of the 2025 Ram HD, so let's talk about it. I want to talk about what's on the surface, what we hear on the surface, what we see on the surface versus what I believe is going on in the background. So, here we go. If you're new to this channel, I utilize Ram trucks for the last 15 years to do my hotshot operation, and Ram really dropped the ball in 22 and 23. 24s, I don't know. I just don't know. Can't tell you one way or another. But the 22s, there's definitely a story. Go check out my channel. I had 7 out of the 8 22s that we own all grenaded, so that's that. What do I want to say? I am very pleased to see where Ram's going here. I know it's a marketing thing. They always competed with numbers and all that, which is great. But what they really did on the backside, average Joe does not look into. They don't see what the fundamental side of things are and what the functional side of it. I'm very pleased to see Ram going back to their roots. Now, coming from a guy that's driven a 1075 torque, that utilized a 1075 for torque for towing day in and day out, there's no shortness of power. Here, let me show you. Yes, I'm driving a Ford personally myself right now. 500 horse, 1200 torque. And there ain't no shortness of power in this one either. But as a towing rig, I just don't want the hot rod. And Ford is a hot rod in my books. Phenomenal truck, but not for my use. Not for what I would give to my guys to drive. Myself, I take it easy, I baby it. But anyways, that's a conversation for another time. What Ram has done has given us everything we need on the mechanical side. They've pioneered a new pump, the CP8. Well, let's take a step back. So this whole numbers war thing, GM has Ram in the horsepower, but not in the torque. Ford has Ram in the horsepower and the torque. So more or less, Ram isn't leading in a whole lot of nothing besides GM on torque. But GM's 10-speed, ability to be agile out as far as quick shifting and stuff. You don't have shortness of power in any of the three, but Ford is the king of the hill. So Ram's previous history, they always competed in the torque area, so that's why everyone wanted to see higher numbers. But you won't, and you won't for a little bit. Ram, what makes me happy is they went back to their core values. They went back to their roots. I feel like that's what they did, and I'm very happy to see that. They felt like, hey, this is a new engine, this is a new transmission. What do I think about them? Phenomenal. I'll cover them later on in this video, but they gave us in my opinion, a solid foundation. And I'm the guy that already has one on order, and I'll tell you what, I'll be, just be transparent. If something goes south, you'll first know that something went south on that truck. I do have a 2025 on order, just to make it clear. So I am, as soon as I get my hands on it, I'll be testing it and putting it through my paces and see if it works out for us. So videos to come if you're curious. I'm not just analyzing a review here. I'm literally the guy that uses these and interpreting what I've seen. So these numbers, they're a solid foundation, but what you guys will see in testing is because of the gearing that they've chosen, you guys will see these trucks perform no less than the Ford. Did you hear me on that? These trucks are going to perform no worse than the Ford. And here's why. If you do your mathematical format, the mechanical advantage that truck has with the transmission, the overdrive transmission, even the overdrive gear itself and the rear gear, it's a very good combination. A 342, in a general sense, is pretty, I call a high-speed rear end. But you got to consider that the final drive on that transmission, the ZF 8-speed transmission, I think they call it torque flight. That's really close to what I think Ford calls their transmission. I think Ford calls theirs torque shift or something like that. Nor here or there. So that final gear being 0.67 and the rear at 342, you're just north of 355s. In a general sense, like this transmission, I believe it's 0.64. The Ison is 0.63. We're all used to those numbers, and you're going to say, well, gee, Paul, what is that really going to change? The shifted towards the axle. The power is shifted towards the axle. I don't know how accurate this interpretation is going to be, but think of it this way. The power, well, don't do that. Let's take a straw. Let's take a straw, and you're blowing through a straw, right? There's resistance. The closer you shut off the flow, meaning downsize the flow to the source. In this case, if you want to test it, put one in your mouth and start blowing through it. At the edge, you have less restriction, felt restriction, versus the closer one. So you have more volume for a longer period of time. That's what happens with the power. The rear end is a multiplier, right? So if you have the transmission with 0.63, you're losing multiplication in the transmission on forward. Now here at 0.67, it's more on the rear end. So once this is all said and done, and once these trucks start performing loaded, you guys will know exactly what I'm talking about. This thing is going to perform, given the multiplying factors, the ratio factors, no less than a Ford. Could it fall behind? Possibly, but very minimally. It's not going to be, the difference isn't going to be what we're used to. So I'll just leave it at that. I entered it wrong. It's confusing. So the ratios that they've applied to these trucks, the multiplying ratios they've applied to these trucks is very good. That engine, let's talk about the engine. The engine that they've built and what they've implemented in that engine is phenomenal from what I see. Now, once we use it, we'll know for sure. Operation, hot shot operation is, think of it as miniature trucking, 100 to 120,000 a year. Those trucks are racking on miles. With a good driver, even north of that. Well, someone that wants to stay on the road and drive more than what's required of them in average operation. So there you have it. That engine is leaps and bounds ahead. So what about the flat tappet, Paul? Guys, it's still hydraulic. I could hear the hydraulic lifters, right? You could hear it in the engine. Ram knows they have an issue. They went from 5 suppliers in the previous engine down to 2. Hold on a second. Did they cancel 2 or they went with 2? Anyways, 2 or 3 suppliers now only supplies lifters for Ram, because after catastrophic failures and all this with the lifters, and that's what I've experienced out of 7 out of my 8 trucks that I've had in 22. That's how that goes. So with that being said, there's still weak points. That yes, everyone wants to see, well, not everybody, but most of the people want to see flat tapping. Guys, hydraulic lifters could be done, and they could be done right, but they definitely need to be supplied right from the get-go. So if you have a faulty part from the beginning, you're not going to get too far. So what am I so excited about? What do I like? I like the fact that they changed the pistons. I like the fact that they progressed in that area. I don't know about the block. Excuse me. I don't know about the block. Exact idea theirs. I know what they're trying to address, and I know they'll address with that, right? Graphite versus iron. Cast iron. They went back on that, but they're gaining weight, and that's what I don't like, but I believe they're giving us a solid foundation. So with the head being different, right? It has a different head. It's an updated thing, right? And I hate saying it this way. I really do, because believe me, I'm the first guy that wants to see a new cab. But I'm happy that they stayed focused on the powertrain, because small or big cab on the side of the road, it doesn't matter as much, right? When you're on the side of the road with the flashers on because you grenaded some, it really doesn't matter. Are their cabs relevant? Yes, their cabs are relevant. If I was in the market to buy a crew cab for myself, I would be struggling to go with that cab. Just putting it out there. That cab's just fine for work. For personal use, I would look at a Ford. Physically, measurements, Ford's cab's not that big, but the way they have it set up, optimized, it's far better than Ram's. Ram's it's a smaller cab inside. I'm buying a mega cab, and out of the 3, they're the only ones that offer a mega cab. So my mega cab's bigger than the Ford's crew cab, but it's nowhere here or there. What I'm trying to say is Ram understood the assignment. People want a good, functional, reliable truck, and that's what they gave. I do not agree in small little areas what they did, and here's an example, right? Like me ordered a limited, and Lord help me, so everything goes well and I get my limited, but like they shorted us with leather wrapped handles, right? It's a premium, it's a luxury, but hey, that's what I bought a limited for. They shorted me on the leather on the handles, but they gave me a whopping screen in my upper glove box. I could care less about that screen. I think that's one of the dumbest things Ram has incorporated in their vehicles. Have I seen one of those screens? Yes. Have I attempted to use them? Yes. Have I lived with one? No. I see no point and no function to it. It's just such a dumb waste of space and electronics. Just like the driver could reach for the center, just so can the passenger. You're telling me, well, you could hook up a HDMI and watch a movie. So can you on your tablet. You got to hook up that screen to something, to display something. You see where I'm going with this? Anyway, so dumb stuff like that I don't agree with. I get it. They want to offer some tech, some upgraded tech, and it's a marketing thing. But if I find a way to remove that screen and not have any codes or any crappy things come up on my screen, you best believe I'm just going to put me a open space glove box there. It's just stupid. It's just one Ram. I just can't get it. That's one thing I can't get over Ram for what they've done. Anyways, the transmission. Guys, nobody knows how this transmission is going to do in a pickup truck. ZF as a transmission company is a phenomenal. They give me the sport vibe, right? Because the BMWs utilize them. The M5 competition, the M5, the competition is even bumped up higher. I mean, they perform really well. They have a really good track record. They use them in box trucks. Really good stuff, right? But we don't know how it's going to react in a pickup truck. We have nothing but good things to assume, and the track record shows good things. So we'll leave it as a very good thing. So I have nothing negative to say. I definitely like their thought process, what they did. I'm excited that somebody's thinking on the ratios. 342 rear end with a .67 final overdrive is a really good combo for what I need. So that being said, there you have it. The transmission is good. You can't add or subtract from it. It seems like a solid platform. I'm very excited. Let's go back to that engine. The fuel system. I like what they did. If you're in the trucking world, it seems like they not mimic, but it's very similar based off pictures what they did in their X15, what Cummins does in their X15. Yes, I run semis as well, and yes, I have a semi with the X15. I like that engine. It has, based off other people, it has shortcomings and it has downfalls, meaning it's not the greatest engine on the market, but I have a 605 horsepower Cummins, X15. Like, what can I complain about? That thing just plows. It does not belong in the truck that I have it in. I call them plastic trucks. But it's just, someone ordered that truck that way, they fell off the deal, and I picked up the deal. It was during a tough time. It was, you didn't get to pick from a lot of trucks when I was buying it. It was just lucky to have the truck. It's a plastic Freightliner Cascadia, which helps it, right? It's a lighter truck, but it just flies up the hills, decent fuel mileage. 6.5 is what we average here in the Pacific Northwest. That's decent, considering the horsepower, because you don't make power out of thin air, right? And going through all these mountains, it's just a phenomenal engine. Back to this pickup. I feel like that's what they did. Looking at the intake manifold, looking at the injectors, and how they have them, just how everything is. So I like what they did. What I don't know is their CP8 that they're claiming. Ram's saying they did their own tests and they've put it through hell and high water, and it passed with flying colors. So now we're just gonna have to wait and see. I'll give that pump its best shot. I'll do what I've done on all my equipment. Throw a little bit of fuel additive, get that lubricity back up, and show you how it's doing and what it's doing. So overall, I feel like Ram did phenomenal. Given the situation, You know, if they didn't have such a downfall in 22 and 23, and they're whatever they pulled off then, it was just ridiculous. Anyways, so with that being said, we can't completely blame Ram for everything, right? Ram, they have the short end of the stick, right? They were collecting a motor from Cummins and collecting a transmission from Ison. Ison always had, I'm talking about the 22, 23s. Ison always had a good track record, but their snap ring in 23 really left people stranded. Cummins, you know, had bad suppliers on the hydraulic lifters, and their blocks kept releasing graphite. Anyways, they have these bearing issues, lifter issues, and all the above. So, with that being said, they're doing their best. And what I'm trying to underline is Ram, given their situation, they've done a phenomenal job. And you got to be realistic about it and being fair. You know, I'm not sugarcoating nothing. I'm just being real about it. Ram doesn't produce their own engine. They don't produce their own transmission, so they're working with what they have. The fact that they've lost a lot. They've refrained from releasing another engine sooner than they should have. Well, they should have released an engine sooner than they have. They're about a year, maybe too late. But they lost a lot of market over it. Look what Ford did. You know, when they released their 6.4s and things went south, they just boom. They came out 6.7 and just full steam ahead. Just kept redoing it. You know, and by 2017, the 6.7 Ford was a stout setup. The 6.7 Power Stroke was a stout setup. I would say anything north of 14 is a stout setup. You know, 11s, when they released the 6.7s, you know, they had their bearing issues and turbos and stuff. Anyways, not to go off subject here, given the situation, Ram has done a phenomenal job. So I'm happy what they did. Just like anybody else wants to see bigger numbers, better cap, or newer cap, but I'd much rather stay on the road. And biggest thing is 1,075 foot-pounds is plenty of power. Have I driven? Yes, I own those trucks. There's never shortness of power. Did I wish Ram was quicker? Yeah, but that's to blame Ison. I never had a Chrysler transmission. I've driven Chrysler transmissions. They're quicker, but they're too much of a slush box. Ison is an automatic too. It's a slush box, but it's more robust, so it kind of drove like a box truck. If you ever driven a box truck or commercial vehicle, it has its own rate, and you're not going to speed it up. You give it all the full throttle you want to, it's going to go at its own pace, which works phenomenally when you're loaded, but it sucks when you're empty. You want to, you know, rip through traffic or, you know, get up on the highway real quick. It don't happen quick. Does it have power? Yes. Does it have the quickness? No. And I'm talking about the 22s, really, with their tuning and what they did. 21s were probably the best tuned trucks. 22s, they really doled down. Now, with them advertising the 25 as a improved responsiveness, improved fuel efficiency, and all that, keeping my fingers crossed, everything points that direction. It really does. With an 8-speed gearbox, you know, ZF is in a lot of sports cars. They have their quick shifting down, so it's looking promising. Anyways, guys, I better wrap it up. As always, may the Lord bless you, and may you all have a mighty fine day.